Support for Central Valley Daily comes from Petunia's Place, celebrating Independent Bookstore Day Saturday, April 26 with a special story time at 11 a.m. Drawings, giveaways, and book signings at 1 p.m. featuring authors Christina Lynch, Janine Raymond, Francesca Parisi, and Jessica Kulekshian. Details at petuniasbooks.com. And from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Monday, April 21st. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. When someone's committed a serious crime while driving, you might think they'd no longer be allowed on the road. A new report shows that's not the case.
4 out of 10 drivers who've been charged with vehicular manslaughter or homicide since 2019 have a valid license.
We will learn more about this new CalMatters investigation in just a moment.
KVPR's wine tasting is almost here. Celebrate spring and raise a glass as you enjoy fine wines, craft beer, food, live music, and a silent auction. It's Sunday afternoon, May 4th in Fresno. Get your tickets online at kvpr.org/wine.
And now to our feature story. We've all seen the headlines. Stories about head-on collisions, hit-and-run accidents, drunk drivers drifting into the wrong lane. So what if I told you some of the most dangerous drivers in California, like repeat offenders with manslaughter charges, are still able to drive despite their records? A new investigation by CalMatters finds lax laws and enforcement from the Department of Motor Vehicles lets many of the most dangerous drivers legally return to the road. Robert Lewis is an investigative reporter for CalMatters who authored the report titled License to Kill. He starts by explaining his reporting method.
So we ended up getting basically lists of vehicular manslaughter homicide cases filed around the state, and ultimately identified about 3,700 cases filed since the start of 2019, basically through early 2024, and then got the DMV driver reports. We're able to get them for about 2,600 of those drivers. And it showed that 40% of them remain valid licensed drivers within the state of California, even though they were involved in a fatal collision for which they were actually charged criminally. And the records, when you drill down into the actual case files themselves, very often shows that many of these drivers had pretty egregious records on the road, multiple tickets, multiple DUIs, multiple collisions prior to the fatal crash.
Yeah, I just want to reinforce that. I mean, as you said, 40% of drivers charged with vehicular manslaughter since 2019 currently have a valid license. So that means 4 out of 10 people who have killed someone while driving are still on the road in California. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. 4 out of 10 drivers who've been charged with vehicular manslaughter or homicide since 2019 have a valid license. I should say these are just the individuals who have been charged criminally. We don't know how many are on the road who, maybe avoided any type of criminal prosecution, having been involved in a fatal crash.
You mentioned gathering records. Now, you report that California doesn't have a centralized court system and records weren't available online. Can you speak to that a little more? I was curious, are you talking like specifically DMV information? Like, how did you get this data for your investigation?
It was quite challenging. So a couple things. One, the DMV has a very antiquated computer system. I was told by an attorney there that their database dates back to the 1970s and uses programming language that dates back to the 1950s.
Wow.
So they were actually unable to provide, in any reasonable amount of time and for a reasonable cost, records and data pertaining to drivers who'd been involved in fatal collisions. We asked them first. So what I ended up doing was putting in requests to all 58 county DA's offices, basically for lists of cases, vehicular manslaughter cases that they'd filed since 2019, so we could effectively compile our own database. But the state courts within California, we don't have a centralized court case management system. Every one of these courts operates almost as a little fiefdom, and records are not posted online. So we enlisted other reporters within the newsroom, largely within the investigations team, and spent, months and months traveling all throughout the state, going to courthouses to request the files, either getting the paper files or looking them up on courthouse computer terminals. So it was a tremendous amount of work to try to be able to pull together all of these records.
I want to note one of the situations of repeat offenders that you outline in your reporting. That's Irvin Wyatt from Stanislaus County. Can you tell us about what he did?
Yeah, his case really jumped out. I was reading through one of the prosecution's filings, and the previous driving record, his history on the road, was just row after row after row. It was so extensive, and it actually jumped to a second page. I mean, it spread across 2 pages, and it was tickets for fleeing police again, running a red light, causing a traffic collision, driving without a license like 4 times. He got a dozen speeding tickets. And one of the things I found is that the DMV actually issued him a license in 2019, and he promptly got 3 more speeding tickets. And now prosecutors contend that he was speeding again when in 2023 he lost control and crashed into oncoming traffic, killing 3 women. So he's now facing murder charges in Stanislaus County.
And do we know what the DMV is doing about this or cases like this?
Well, so the DMV, I talked to officials there, and one of the things they say is there is no process to permanently revoke a driver's license, and that they always have to give someone an opportunity to get their license back. That being said, they do have a lot of discretionary power. They can take away the driving privileges of someone they think is not safe on the road, and they're not required to give the license back if they think that person continues to be a threat on the road. So they contend that there is a process within the state. They follow the law. So that's what they told me.
I want to quote you here in your report. You write, "The court records and driving histories reveal a state so concerned with people having access to motor vehicles for work and life that it allows deadly drivers to share our roads despite the cost." Do you think because we are so car dependent in California, we're more permissive with dangerous drivers? And do we know how other states are handling these issues?
I really do think there is a fear of the unintended consequences if we were to crack down sort of harder on some of these drivers, right? Like, you take somebody's license, you can effectively be consigning a family to poverty. It's going to affect job decisions, it's going to affect school decisions, it's going to affect medical decisions. So, I think there is a real concern that there's any number of people who, maybe they're driving on a suspended license, but they really need it to get to work, and you're just going to destroy lives if you go too hard at them. That being said, where we have set the bar allows people, very dangerous drivers, to stay on the road, and too often they kill. Very often they stay on the road after they kill, and some go on to kill again. So I think there is an opportunity for the state to look and consider the degree to which we are doing enough to identify people who are causing real danger and harm on our roads.
And has there been any movement among state lawmakers to change laws or address this?
Every year there is some bills or measures aimed at addressing traffic safety. In recent years, there's been sort of a pilot program to test out speed cameras. A lot of researchers point to the fact that speed is such a major factor in so many deadly crashes. Certainly in the cases we looked at, a lot of these individuals have quite the extensive history of speeding on the road. But it's only a handful of places that are authorized to do it. Some of those are just starting up, even though it's been over a year since, they've been authorized to have these. So, there are some efforts, but it would certainly appear there's a lot more we could be doing.
Anything else you'd like to add, Robert?
The only thing I'd say, one of the driving sort of forces behind this project was a conversation I had very early on with a researcher who said, we treat traffic deaths in this country and in this state as a given, right? Like, we talk about COVID, for example, and we compare it to the number of people that die in motor vehicle crashes as if it's an unchangeable constant. But that's simply not true. Like, there are policy decisions that we make or don't make that contribute to it. And if we want things to change, then we need to take action as a government and as a society.
Robert Lewis, investigative reporter for Cal Matters. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And that's today's show. If you're enjoying Central Valley Daily, do us a favor and share it with a friend. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
This is Tanya Mosley, co-host of Fresh Air. You'll see your favorite actors, directors, and comedians on late-night TV shows or YouTube. But what you get with Fresh Air is a deep dive. Spend some quality time with people like Billie Eilish, Questlove, Ariana Grande, Stephen Colbert, and so many more. We ask questions you won't hear asked anywhere else. Listen to the Fresh Air podcast from NPR and WHYY.